I see and hear about people who are very concerned that if they don't manage to do 51% or more STO than STS, they are doomed and can't ascend to the fourth and fifth dimensions. Therefore, they are constantly in stress and are anxious about their status. That itself, if we are cynical, is STS, because if you constantly think about how you are going to save yourself, by default you are STS, so whomever came up with this nonsense knew what they were doing. It is absolutely nothing wrong with helping others, but your first responsibility is that to yourself. Hence, in terms of STS and STO as stated in the raw material, that would be very STS, wouldn't it? Well, I am going to state that STS is actually more important than STO, if we have to choose one of the two. But it's more complex than that, so let's continue. Let's start with the following Pleiadian statement. Humans who do not operate with love of self and love of the planet will be departing in vast numbers very quickly after exposure to the rays entering Earth. This is how important the Pleiadians think STS is. If we don't feel this immense love of self and the planet, people will die in vast numbers. Here is another Pleiadian quote before we round it off. Often those who continue to take care of others get caught up in the role of providing, and mistake this for their identity and purpose. What has come out of the STS-STO debate is a new kind of fear, which is very serious, because it addresses the person's possibilities to evolve and ascend to higher dimensions and densities. Very little can be more stressful than that. Of course, not everybody see it as stressful either, but enjoy what they're doing. At least this is what they say, when perhaps, if they look deep enough inside, underneath any type of denial, they may actually be very stressed, too. But I leave that for each person to look at for themselves. The way I see it, and I find this very important, is that we need to mainly concentrate on our own issues. In the nanosecond, we have a free ride on the waves of enlightenment, where we have the chance to deal with our timeline issues and become whole as a spirit, and eventually merge with our oversouls. We do that by raising our own frequency and become an example for others. Those who are connected to you in one way or another will feel your energy's distances don't matter, and they will be affected positively from your just being you. But by raising your own frequency, you are doing so much more than that, too. You help raising the frequency of the whole planet, which will eventually break down the prison walls. This is so, because Earth, from Sirian manipulation, is set to a certain frequency, which will hide the planet from being seen by other star beings, and inaccessible by most. By raising the frequency of the mass consciousness, we change the frequency of the whole planet, and this is our main task right now. Does this mean that we should just neglect others who need help? No, not at all. We can still give help when asked for, but there are certain universal rules when doing so, which have to be taken into consideration. I have talked about this before, but I have seen how hard it is for it to sink in, because good people are so used to helping out, hands-on. 1. Only help someone when help is asked for. Don't help just because you see somebody struggle with a problem. Of course, if someone falls on the street, you will be there to help. That's obvious, but I am talking about somebody else's life situations, either for the first time or recurring. Observe, but don't offer help until help is asked for. I will explain why in a moment. 2. When help is given, it must be help to self-help, as much as it's possible. Don't do the job for somebody else. Let the person do the job themselves, but when asked for, give advice if you feel you can, but the advice should cause an insight for the other person. These are the two simple rules, and they are based upon the same core value. Each person is learning their own lessons in life and must not be interfered with. Too often people interfere and believe they are helping. Then they get surprised when the person they help doesn't seem very appreciative, and sometimes even start attacking the one who's assisting. This often happens in parents-children relationships and between married couples. The core thing here is that if a person is told exactly what to do, or someone is doing it for them, they never learn. Even if something seems obvious to you, it may not be to the other person, who needs to figure it out. By figuring it out themselves, no matter what it takes and they have to go through, they are perhaps figuring out something that has bothered them for lifetimes, and once they solve the problem themselves, they have accomplished a lot. This is how we heal along the lines of time, it can only be done by the person themselves, not by somebody else, because it's inner work. I know it's hard not to interfere when we see that we can solve a problem for another, but ultimate love is to let that person have their space and figure it out on their own, and when asked for, give advice which will help them see by doing their own thinking. And just to be more obvious, if the neighbor comes over and asks you to help him carry something up on this truck, of course it's okay to help out. This is not the kind of help I'm talking about. I am relating to life issues and life problems a person seems to have, which may be recurring patterns that the person has a hard time to break. This is where profound advice can be the best help to self-help. This is when the person afterwards comes up and thanks you from all their heart, because you granted them the opportunity to solve the problem themselves. You only provided something they could think about. On a grander scale, this is why star beings from other worlds should not interfere with an evolving race. It's a break in the law of non-interference. We break that law all the time on a smaller scale, and it creates upsets at best, and confusion along the lines of time at worst. Also, when you solve a problem for another, they feel less powerful than you when they are not. Brought to more of an extreme, this is how idealism and heroism is created.